All right, today is Issachar and Zebulun, which are the last two bio children of Leah. And so she ended up having 6 of the 10, and then she claimed the 2 others that Zilpah had. And then the other 2, well, next week is the last 2 is Benjamin and Joseph, but we're going to be real light in Joseph because most people know the Joseph story. And but Issachar, Genesis, oh, this is interesting. Remember we had the Reuben and the mandrakes, and he was doing whatever, he's a farmer, and he found the mandrakes, which in those times they believed helped you get pregnant. And he brought the mandrakes home to his mom, Leah. And I guess Rachel saw it and said, "Give me those mandrakes." And Leah's response was, "You took my husband, now you want to take my mandrakes?" and so she said, I think this is so, I'll let you sleep with Jacob tonight if you give me the mandrakes.
And she gave it to
her. And so Leah went running out when he was coming home from the fields, probably stinky as Winky, but whatever, and said, "I've hired you for tonight, so you have to sleep with me." You know, the whole thing is just so bizarre. So bizarre. But he loved Rachel, and Leah was just, the baby maker, basically. And she kept hoping every single time she had another son, that he would then,
finally love her.
Right, never happened.
I just don't understand how the one woman wife didn't apply that.
It did.
It was very common back then.
Yeah, right, it was common, but no, God said from Genesis, one man, one woman,
yeah.
And he
That's what I.
Yeah, so they just disobeyed because they weren't supposed to have multiple wives. So, okay, it's 30:14, Genesis 30:14, and Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes." And she said unto her, "Is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband, and wouldest thou take away my son's mandrakes also?" And Rachel said, "Therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes." And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him and said, "Thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes." And he lay with her that night. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare Jacob a 5th son. And Leah said, "God hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband." And she called his name Issachar. All right. Irony, Rachel got the mandrakes and then it's Leah who got pregnant and had another son. Okay, Rachel should have been getting the hint, and also this is what took me a long time trying to figure out what this meant. And God hath given me my hire, which means she hired the Jacob because of the mandrakes. Real nice, you have to hire your husband. "Because I have given my maiden to my husband." I thought, what are you talking about? God's blessing you because you gave Zilpah to Jacob? And that's what it means, that she thought that God was blessing her because she gave Zilpah to Jacob to have more kids.
On her behalf.
Yeah, on her behalf. But a lot of the commentaries said that was a real wrong interpretation, because we can't make God, what we do does not, what we do does influence God, but it's not tit for tat. I gave you my maiden, and now I'm going to have more kids. So, but I thought, why would she say that God? And that's like you said, Carmen, another wife on the horizon just doesn't, it's not right. And so there is what Issachar means. There is a reward or man of hire, because she hired Jacob. And she saw Issachar as a divine reward for the fact she gave Zilpah to Jacob. And that there was a divine approval for her actions. And this just never ended. The rivalry, reward, and divine involvement was going on the whole time with these people, and it must have been a real dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
All the Jacob loved Rachel and not Leah, and Leah had most of the kids, and so the kids knew it. Okay, so in Genesis 46:14, it says the sons of Issachar, I'm sorry, son of Issachar. Issachar lived 122 years. He died in Egypt, but later his body was moved to Shechem with the rest of the patriarchs. So he moved, when the famine hit, he and all his family moved to Egypt. And he died there, but they buried his body there, but then they moved it to Shechem where the rest of the patriarchs were living.
What's that reference?
46, Genesis 46:14.
About the 122 years? Not sure.
Whatever, my 46:14 doesn't say.
Oh, no,
that.
46:14 is about
Oh,
Zebulun, sorry.
Yeah.
so.
And it's 46:13, Genesis 46:13 tells of the sons of Issachar, Tola, Pua, Jashub, and Shimeon. Do we wonder why? And then Jacob's blessing on Issachar is in 49:14 and 15. Genesis 49:14 and 15.
Are you sure?
Not really, we'll see.
I'm just
All
right,
with you.
Okay, I'm right. 49:14 and 15.
Yeah.
Issachar is a strong ass or donkey, couching down between two burdens. And he saw that rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and become a servant unto tribute. All right, these things are really hard to, what this is saying is that there's two interpretations, that the donkey was a humble animal of burden who did what its masters wanted, which you always hear about the donkeys being stubborn and maybe not doing, but
The mule.
oh, it's a mule. It's not.
stubborn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
the
thank you for
donkey
that.
is
Okay,
Humble. The donkey is
humble, and that was what they're saying. But others once said that it was when it says that the two burdens, the couching down between two burdens, that they were doing that so they didn't have to work. That they were being lazy and didn't have to work.
And
but
my note says saddlebags or campfires.
for what?
Burden.
Oh, okay. So, and the other thing about this is where it says, and he saw that rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. The land that Issachar was in was surrounded by, number one, neither he or Zebulun got rid of all the Canaanites that God told them to do. And what he did, which really was against God, was the Canaanites that stayed there and that they didn't throw out of the land. He made them into servants and to pay tribute to him. And it was something God never wanted. He wanted them wiped out of the land. And then in Joshua 19:17 to 24, it tells about, we don't have to go there because it's got all these towns you can't pronounce. Tells where his land allotment was, and it was southwest of the Sea of Galilee. It was a fertile and pleasant plain, and that was a problem too, because of its pleasant and fertile, it attracted invaders all the time. And what happened was that Issachar decided that they'd rather work for the invaders than fight with them. They weren't warring people, and that they would pay tribute to them, because it went both ways. When the invaders would come and overtake them, they would pay tribute to them rather than fight with them, because they wanted their peaceful life, and it was easier for them to be peaceful and be under the tribute to the invaders. And that's what Jacob is talking about. However, then you go to in Judges 5:14 to 15, and Judges 5:14 to 15, which is when they fought with Deborah. They were being warlike, and because they heeded Deborah's call. So 5:14 and 15. Out of Ephraim was there a root of them against Amalek. After thee, Benjamin, among thy people. Out of Machar came down governors, and out of Zebulun they that handle the pen of the writer. I don't know what that means. And the princes of Issachar were with Deborah. Even Issachar and also Barak was sent on foot into the valley. For the divisions of Reuben there were great thoughts of heart. That's Reuben didn't show up. So they went and fought with, when they got called, they did go to help Barak and Deborah. And Zebulun and 18, verse 18, Zebulun and Naphtali were a people that jeopardized their lives unto the death in the high places of the field. And what she's saying is they risked their lives to fight with them against the Midianites. And then in Numbers 129, they're talking about the, remember we have the census before when they first went into the wanderings, they took a census, and at that time, there was 54,400 with Issachar, and right before they were going into the promised land, they had increased to 64,300. Because remember when we talked about the other ones, a lot of them had decreased, especially Dan. Why did Dan decrease, they thought?
You said that last week.
Because of the adultery, his adultery, and they think that that's why his tribe would, not adultery, idolatry. Idolatry. That's why the tribe decreased because of their idolatry. So.
Is Numbers
129,
Oh.
and then 26, 23 to 25. And Zebulun, what we're gonna get to Zebulun, is same thing, that they had 57,400 at the beginning, and they had 6,500 right before they were going into the promised land. So both of these tribes had increased over the time. And what Issachar was known of, they were scholars, and their knowledge and spiritual leadership was what they did for the tribes. And even though they had those little, they rather would sit and let the invaders take over, but they were known for their scholarship and their study of the Torah and their spiritual leadership of the tribes. And there was a relationship between them and Zebulun. Zebulun was known as sea people. And what they did, they were real close, Zebulun and Issachar, the brothers and the tribes. And what happened was Zebulun was very prosperous because they were between Galilee and the Sea of Galilee and the Mediterranean Sea, and they were in trade routes, so they got very prosperous doing trade. And they had this deal that they would support Issachar so they could study the Torah, because in return the Issachar tribe would give them blessings from knowing the Torah. I don't know quite how that worked, but it was in several different places. And also,
That's like you do all the research and we get the benefit.
okay, there you go, yeah, right.
That's good, Terry.
Right. So the prominent men of Issachar, because remember we had a bunch of tribes that didn't have anybody prominent. The Numbers 13:7, Egal was one of the spies that went into Canaan, but he was one of the bad reports, so I don't know if that's such a good one. Judges 10, 1-2, Tola of the Issachar was one of the judges of Israel during the time of the judges. And 1 Kings 15:27, Barushka was one of the kings of Israel. And so Issachar had some of the prominent men, unlike some of the others. Okay, so now remember Jacob would give the blessing, and then right before they were going into the promised land, Moses went through and gave his blessings to all the tribes, and Moses was a little more complimentary than Jacob was on how he blessed the tribes. So it's Deuteronomy which we should know this since we did this with Mike, but who remembers? Deuteronomy 33, 18 and 19. Okay. And Zebulun, and of Zebulun, oh, I meant Zebulun, not, Issachar. Okay, hold on. 18. And of Zebulun he said, rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out, and, oh, here it is. And of Zebulun he said, rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tents. They shall call the people into the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall suck of the abundance of the seas and of the treasuries hid in the sand. All right, what this is saying, rejoice, Zebulun, that going out. Zebulun was the on the ships, and that was what the going out was, that they left their land and did trade in ships. And one of the things they said too, that they were potential evangelists and leading others to, because they met people from other, doing in the trade and everything, they met people from other countries and stuff, and some of them were converted to Judaism. So they were kind of known as evangelists. And what this means is that the issues of the tribe of husbandry, that Issachar was husbandmen and scholars, and that means in your tents. In your tents mean that they stayed at home and they did the husbanding, which was the agricultural work, and they were scholars because they stayed in their tents. And they were quiet, settled, and had an agricultural life. And some of the commentaries said that the settled life led to wisdom and discernment. And 33:19, where it says, they shall call the people into the mountain, there they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness. That they were people that called the other tribes to worship and to use their influence and resources. And the mountains they're talking about could either be Mount Tabor or Jerusalem, the mount that where the temple ended up being. All right, and tents too, where it says in the tents symbolize family, worship, and teaching. So they were family, worship, and teaching. And then the next, where almost all these, okay, we have the Jacob's blessing, somewhat. Then we have Moses's blessing, and then they're talked about in Ezekiel. The tribes are talked about in Ezekiel, when it's going to be the new heavens and the new earth. So in Ezekiel 48, and Ezekiel 48, 25 and 26, and by the border of Simeon from the east side and to the west side, Issachar a portion, and by the border of Issachar from the east side and to the west side, Zebulun is a portion. And that's what they're saying is going to be who has the in the new world. That's where they're going to be, and also in Jerusalem where the gates in 33. And at the south side, 4,500 measures and 3 gates. 1 gate of Simeon, 1 gate of Issachar, 1 gate of Zebulun. So on the south side of the temple of Jerusalem is going to be the gates for the Simeon, Issachar, and Zebulun. And remember too when we said that there was going to be certain of the tribes was going to be in one mountain screaming curses and the other screaming blessings. Well, Zebulun is the cursor, but Issachar is one of the tribes that did the blessings on the mount that gave the blessings. So, and here, that's Zebulun. I'm not sure what Issachar, remember the thing, I don't know what Issachar is. Oh, maybe no, that's Gad. I don't know, but I do know what Zebulun is. It's the sea, because they were the seafaring tribe, and it's
interesting with them not having any. I mean, they're not
Right,
Landlocked.
right, that's what
Yeah.
some of the commentators said, that they must have interpreted that wrong, cause they're landlocked, and how could they be, but they're,
Rivers or whatever.
right, and trade routes.
Yeah.
They're on the trade routes, that's why, but yeah, they did bring that up. And the banner was a ship on a white background, and, the Zebulun stone, remember all the 12 tribes had a stone on the ephod, and his was a diamond. Ooh, Zebulun had a diamond, so I'm not sure what Issachar. And, other rabbinic legends tell about members of Zebulun who were successful seamen and brought income to Issachar in order for Issachar to stay home, study the Torah, and be great teachers, lawyers, and diplomats. And supposedly, too, they were really influential during when David became king. So, and that was another thing, too, that Issachar fought for David. Even though they weren't fighters, once when they knew that it was that it was best, that because of they knew that David's struggle against Saul, and 1 Chronicles 12:32, go to that, that's when it talks about, 1 Chronicles 12:32. 32. And the children of Issachar which were men that had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do. The heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment. And Zebulun, back to Zebulun, they came forth for David, and they brought 50,000 men who would keep rank. So they were both fighting for David, and this was when David was struggling against Saul. And the chiefs of the Issachar were faithful to David, and they were described as they understood the times. And that basically means that they're politically astute. They used current events to their advantage. They were known for their understanding of astronomy and physical science. It's interesting. Where did they get all this learning? Men of prudence and wisdom, who because of their religious scholarship knew it was the proper time for David to be king. So because of their background in studying the Torah and everything, that they knew it was time that David should be king. However, with Issachar, they were conquered by the Assyrians in 720. They were one of the first that went down from the Assyrians because they were close. Okay. So back to Zebulun. Okay, let's go back to Zebulun. Where's my Zebulun stuff? Okay. Zebulun was a maritime tribe engaging in commerce, trade, and exploration. In Jacob's blessing is in 49:13 on Zebulun. Genesis 49:13. Yeah, back to Genesis 49:13, where he talks where he's dying and he's telling them all. You remember after he gave Joseph his blessing, he laid over and died.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm done.
yeah, I'm done. That was my favorite. He's now 49:13. It says, Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zion. And basically what he's saying, that he's going to be involved in maritime things, and he shall be a haven for ship. And what the commentators thought that was probably it, that he was, they were kind of like a lighthouse, and they were kind to to shipping people that came in, and that's how they became so great with the trading too.
Yeah, and he's landlocked too.
Yeah.
Just like Issachar.
The trading activities were called sacrifices of righteousness, and that's what they're saying, that maybe it was the contact when they were having contact with other nations. They brought them to Judaism. Then, in, Moses's, well, no, wait, let's go to when they were first born, 29, 'cause it was right after,
29
Still in
what?
Genesis?
yeah, 29,
Genesis 29.
okay, and, in 29, 19, after she had, I guess she didn't have to pay for the next round of mandrakes, 'cause and Leah conceived again and bare Jacob the sixth son. And Leah said, God hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun. Well, unfortunately, that didn't happen. She had the 6th son, and apparently, one,
16, she said?
29, 16?
no, 19.
19.
29, 19.
At
19, 20.
Laban said.
What?
19 and 20. 29, verses 19 and 20. And,
I don't see Zebulun.
Yeah.
No, mine says
Yeah,
Zebulun.
mine,
Yeah, Leonard said it had.
20.
Here for.
what?
and 20, and she called his
Oh,
name
19.
Zebulun. Yeah, 19, and Leah conceived again and bare Jacob the 6th son. And Leah said, God hath endued me with good dowry.
What is it?
Genesis
It's
19, is it 29 and 16?
Oh, did I say 20?
It's
Sorry,
39.
30, I'm sorry, no wonder you're all confused.
Yeah.
Sorry. Chapter 30,
Okay.
19, thank you, 19
Yes.
and 20.
Oh my,
Yes.
Like,
There we go.
you're making me go crazy.
I know,
It's
and I'm
working.
right
And
there
it's
with
working.
you.
working.
It's
It is.
working.
Right,
It's
right,
fast,
right.
Okay,
So,
now,
okay, and that's what, Zebulun means honor, or, what was the other term? It meant honor, basically, because she thought this was God honoring her, and that she would, Jacob would come to her. How many times do you have to figure it out? He's not coming
Coming.
to you,
Well,
you
he's
know?
not coming.
quite often.
Yes, but not until, only for his pleasure.
Like 12 kids.
Right.
That's a lot of business.
Mhm.
And Diana, that's 13.
That's a lot of business.
Yes, yes. All right, and in Matthew 4, 13 to 16, because this is what they're talking to about Zebulun as well as Naphtali. Because remember, Naphtali had land that was in Galilee and where Jesus and Capernaum. And they're the two lands are together, and this is what the Matthew 4 and also Isaiah. We'll go back to Isaiah. Let's do Matthew 4, 13 to 16. Okay. And leaving Nazareth, this is Jesus, and leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt in Capernaum, which is upon the sea coast, and the borders of Zebulun and Naphtali. Then that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali by the way of the sea, beyond Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. See, they say they're the way of the sea.
Yeah,
This doesn't
It'll be up to
jive with what's in here, in my opinion.
Right, because it's
Yeah.
that, but the commentator said it was landlocked.
Yeah.
So, and the people which sat in darkness saw a great light, and to them which sat in the region and shadow of death, light is sprung out. And that's what they're saying, that was the prophecy of the righteousness, that Jesus was gonna be in the land that was of the tribe of Naphtali and Zebulun. And the other thing is faithfulness. Zebulun meant honor and faithfulness. And in Isaiah 9, 9, I just lost that. All right.
I gotta change my glasses. I keep saying that, but I haven't gone to the doctor.
All right, Isaiah 9, 1 and 2. Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation, when the first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. That's saying God afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and that's what he's saying when the Assyrians took over. That's how they got afflicted. I mean, the whole, one way or the other, the Syrians or the Babylonians got all of Israel, but he's talking about, in Isaiah, is talking about when the Assyrians take over Naphtali and Zebulun's tribal lands. And afterwards he did more grievously afflict her by the way of the sea beyond the Jordan in Galilee of the nations. When they say Galilee of the nations, they're referring to a lot of Gentiles had moved into Galilee and in that area. And so the people that were against Jesus, the Pharisees, etc., were saying, he's from a region that's full of Gentiles. It's bad enough he's from Nazareth, but it's also full of Gentiles. And so 9:2, the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. And that's what they're talking about. That's Matthew 4:16, that Jesus is the light that came in the area that was for Naphtali and Zebulun. And Capernaum, where Jesus spent a lot of his time too, was in the land of Zebulun and Naphtali. And that, okay, Judges 1:30, problem.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we talked about kind of, but problem, in Judges 1:30. Neither did Zebulun drive out the inhabitants of Kitron, nor the inhabitants of Neholah, but the Canaanites dwelt among them and became tributaries. So that, and then it goes on to Asher didn't either. I don't think any of the tribes actually got all the Canaanites out of their lands, but these seem to be that the Bible felt was the most egregious that didn't get rid of them, and that they then used them to pay tribute to them. That was, they didn't drive them out, and now you're doing something that I don't want you to do on top of it.
They're paying tribute to
the
Canaanites?
No, the Canaanites are paying tribute to them.
Oh.
But they did. It went both ways. When the Canaanites got more strong and took over the land, because Issachar wouldn't fight them. And I guess Zebulun wouldn't step in to help them, but they wouldn't fight them. And so rather than fight with them, they just say, okay, we'll pay tribute to you. Just let us live in peace and study the Torah in our tents and et cetera, et cetera. So, no, this is a Zebulun, that he's not studying the Torah. So, which is interesting because Zebulun was a fighter, and they fought for Barak and Deborah, and they also fought for David, but they wanted to have their own land. And so, yeah, and Joshua said that the Zebulun had 4 Levite towns within their land. There was 4 Levitical towns. And okay, now back to Judges 4. Oh, right in Judges. Okay, let's move on. 4:6.
Judges
4:6.
4:6.
This is talking about Deborah, and she sent and called Barak the son of Abimelech out of Kadesh Naphtali, and said unto him, hath not the Lord God of Israel commanded, saying, go and draw toward Mount Tabor, and take with thee 3,000 men of the children of Naphtali and the children of Zebulun, which happened. And then 5:14, out of Ephraim was there a root of them against Amalek, after thee Benjamin among thy people, and of Machar came down governors, and out of Zebulun they that handle the pen of the writer. And then 5:18. This is when Zebulun and Naphtali were people that jeopardized their life. We talked about that in the high places. This is Deborah's song when she's praising the ones that came to help, and not being so happy with Reuben and the other tribes that sat around and didn't. And Reuben and Asher is the one I think comes to mind, but didn't come and help, that weren't willing to fight for their brothers. So, and then, First Chronicles, talking about David, when David's coming into the throne, 12:33. Of Zebulun, such as went forth to battle, they were experts in war, so why they didn't fight when the Canaanites were coming after them, I do not know. So, 33, of Zebulun, such as went forth to battle, expert in war, with all instruments of war, 50,000 which could keep rank. They were not of double heart. In other words, they were all for it, all in for David. And then 38 to 12:38 to 40. All these men of war that could keep rank came with a perfect heart to Hebron to make David king over all Israel, and all the rest also of Israel were of one heart to make David king. And there they were with David 3 days, eating and drinking for their brethren, and prepared for them. Moreover, they that were nigh them, even unto Issachar and Zebulun and Naphtali, brought bread on asses, and on camels, and on mules, and on oxen, and meat, meal, cakes of figs, and bunches of raisins, and wine and oil, and oxen, and sheep abundant, for there was joy in Israel. So when this was going on, Naphtali and Zebulun and Issachar bought all these provisions for David and his men. And obviously, Chronicles people were very happy about what they'd done. And, let me see. Finally, they're just like all the only ones that aren't mentioned, the tribes that are not mentioned in Revelation is Dan, because it was his idolatry. Although he does show up again when they're talking about the new heavens and the new earth. So he got redeemed somehow. But Revelation 7:8. Of the tribe of Zebulun were sealed 12,000, of the tribe of Joseph, blah, blah, blah. But Zebulun has the 12, and in Revelation 7:7, it talks about, of the tribe of Issachar were sealed 12,000. So they were part of the 144,000. And also, in 2 Chronicles, they talk about, when Hezekiah became king, he started to do the Passover feast, and there was a bunch of rebellion in Israel that they for some reason didn't want to do it, but the tribe of Zebulun and Issachar came up and said, yeah, we're going to be with you and we're going to do it. So they were given more. I think that's all I had for that, and the Ezekiel one. All right. This is for Brenda and my headache. We got done early.